The Obama administration wanted to begin a dialogue with the Syrian government, a serious dialogue.
My fellow Americans, tonight I want to talk to you about Syria.
You had Hillary Clinton, Leon Panetta, David Petraeus, a whole series of people at the very top of the national security apparatus who were urging Obama to get involved, and the president chose not to.
Secret program run by the CIA.
I think General Petraeus suggested that there were people affiliated with Al-Qaeda that might be weaned away from it and armed and trained.
Prying away some of those from Nusra, I think, would have been a viable option.
Did he say moderate Al-Qaeda members?
So the rebels, the militants, the terrorists, whatever you want to call them, depending on your political stripe, there's no question that they've been used by outside parties as proxies for their own geopolitical interests.
There is no question that the single biggest foreign policy failure of the Obama administration has been Syria.
And we killed them all. We destroyed all their cities. We destroyed everything they had, their families, their children. I was there. I watched.
Some days they are simply YPG. Other days, they're terrorists.
I was a combat medic in the YPG and the Yebeshe. There was no way in hell that we were going to follow an order that we couldn't treat Arab civilians equally.
The backstage is Chris.
The civil war in aiding rebels in their battle against government troops.
In Syria, hundreds more dead, many of them children.
My fellow Americans, tonight I want to talk to you about Syria, why it matters, and where we go from here.
I think he's the worst president maybe in the history of our country. I think he's been a disaster. He's been weak.
President Obama drew a red line and let Bashar al-Assad just run right through that red line.
Now it's a test case for Obama's credibility around the world, and credibility at home.
Well, about 11 million Syrians have been forced to leave their homes.
Whatever strategy the U.S. has regarding Syria is simply failing.
Syria is a geopolitical Chernobyl. It's the meltdown of a country. It has inflicted violence, extremism, and a tsunami of refugees, causing the biggest domestic political challenges for a number of our NATO allies since the end of the Cold War.
There is no question that the single biggest foreign policy failure of the Obama administration has been Syria.
The complexities in Syria are extraordinary. The Kurds, the Syrians, the Iraqis, the Iranians, the Russians, so many different players.
You had a regime there that was identified with a minority sectarian group, the Alawite, in a nation which is predominantly Sunni Muslim.
سوريا بلد تحكمه عائلة الأسد بقبضة حديدية. خلف بشار الأسد والده عام 2000 وحكم خليطا من الجماعات العرقية والدينية.
Bashar al-Assad's Alawite community, which is a branch of Shia Islam, and it's about 10% of the population, has really run the country. Bashar al-Assad's father, Hafez al-Assad, was a brutal dictator.
وصل حافظ الأسد إلى السلطة عن طريق انقلاب، ولم يخش قط استخدام العنف خلال 28 عاماً.
It's not just that Syria is a complicated country, because it really is. And it's a country that the United States does not know very well. Why? Because it was a Russian ally for decades. It was an Iranian ally for decades.
They were very suspicious of the Americans. The relationship between Syria and the United States was very difficult, and had been very difficult for a long time. American support for the State of Israel made Syrians suspicious of the United States.
كان حافظ الأسد بالنسبة للولايات المتحدة عدواً جريئاً. حاول الرئيس الأمريكي بيل كلينتون المقاربة بين سوريا وإسرائيل، لكنه فشل في ذلك. أدرجت الولايات المتحدة سوريا على القائمة السوداء لدعمها للجماعات الإرهابية، ولم يكن الأمريكيون مستعدين لإلغاء ذلك.
That was sort of the way the Assads, and particularly Hafiz al-Assad, the father, protected his own regime, was by exporting instability abroad and sending the message to others that if you mess with us, we will mess with you.
عند اقتراب حافظ الأسد من نهاية حياته، كان المخطط هو تعيين ابنه الأكبر باسل خلفاً له، لكن باسل توفي في حادث سير، ونقلت مقاليد السلطة إلى الابن الأصغر بشار.
Assad's death raises serious concerns about Syria's stability and the future of the Mideast peace process, where now the nation remains in mourning.
توفى حافظ الأسد في 10 من يونيو عام 2000، وتخلى بشار عن الحياة الطلابية في المملكة المتحدة ليصبح أصغر رئيس لسوريا.
The minimum age for a Syrian president of 40 years old was lowered to 34 years old, which is Bashar's age.
انتخب رئيساً عام 2000 بلا معارضة.
An African American has broken the barrier as old as the Republic, an astonishing candidate, an astonishing campaign.
بعد 8 سنوات وعلى بعد آلاف الكيلومترات، أذهل شاب سياسي آخر العالم عندما أصبح رئيساً للولايات المتحدة.
You are looking at the 44th President of the United States. The celebrations begin.
Now, the United States of America, Barack H. Obama.
President Obama is a very popular president. He was seen as being very smart, very reasonable, a very good person in terms of his private life. However, when it came to foreign policy, especially the Syria conflict, his thinking, in my opinion, in the opinion of many observers, was quite muddled.
I, Barack Hussein Obama, do solemnly swear.
بعد إرهاق الحروب المكلفة وبإلهام وعد الأمل والتغيير، انتخب الشعب الأمريكي باراك أوباما بقدر واف. أصبح تحسين العلاقات مع دول مثل إيران وسوريا أولوية قصوى لإدارة أوباما، وتم إرسال سفير أمريكي جديد إلى سوريا.
Robert Ford, U.S. Ambassador to Syria.
My boss called me and said, Obama administration wants to send you to Syria.
Robert Ford, the U.S. Ambassador to Syria.
I said, I don't want Syria. I would prefer to go to a different country. They said, no, it has to be Syria.
أعاد أوباما افتتاح السفارة الأمريكية في دمشق، والتي قد أغلقها جورج بوش قبل 4 سنوات.
The Obama administration wanted to begin a dialogue with the Syrian government, a serious dialogue.
بدأ أوباما في البداية عازماً على إعادة البناء.
I've come here to Cairo to seek a new beginning between the United States and Muslims around the world. Assalamu alaikum.
لكن المخطط لم يصمد أمام الربيع العربي.
There's a lot of debate over the Syria conflict. The conflict started in 2011 as part of the Arab Spring.
But what's happening in Tunisia is sending shockwaves across the Arab world.
أشعل بائع متجول تونسي شرارة الاحتجاج.
Something enormously important is happening half a world away from us.
سرعان ما امتد الربيع العربي إلى دول أخرى كمصر واندلع في الشوارع.
Thousands of Mubarak supporters charged into Cairo's Tahrir Square.
Muammar Gaddafi ruled Libya with an iron fist for 42 years, is dead.
وتساءلت الولايات المتحدة، هل سيكون للمظاهرات تأثيراً على قبضة النظام السوري على السلطة؟
When Obama gave me the recess appointment, we were not expecting an uprising in Damascus and in Syria. Absolutely not.
عقد سفير الولايات المتحدة الجديد روبرت فورد أول اجتماع له مع بشار الأسد بالتزامن مع انتشار الفوضى في تونس ومصر.
I asked him if he was nervous about the hot winds from North Africa reaching the Levant and reaching Syria, and he understood exactly what I meant when I used the words hot wind. He understood precisely, and he smiled and he said, there will be no problems in Syria because Syria was leading the resistance front against Israel, and therefore the Syrian public would always support him.
Anti-government protesters have taken to the streets in Syria.
Pro-democracy demonstrations against the government of Bashar al-Assad.
About 2.5 weeks later, there was the first demonstration in Syria, and it was at the Harqa market.
اندلعت الاحتجاجات الشعبية الأولى في دمشق كرد على ضرب الشرطة لصاحب متجر. أرسل النظام السوري وزير الداخلية لتهدئة المتظاهرين.
That night we sent a report back to Washington and we said, the Arab Spring is not here yet, but the firewood is ready.
There's anger in Syria. Protesters regroup following a huge crackdown by security forces.
Syrian state television acknowledged there had been disturbances in Dara.
Amateur pictures are set to show the clashes between demonstrators and the police right after
trying to get reaction from Dara, the city where the most violent protests took place.
So Dara was a couple of weeks later, and there again it was a question about police abuse.
فبراير عام 2011 درعا مدينة صغيرة تقع قرب الحدود مع الأردن.
It was some school students who were arrested and beaten by the Dara police because they were painting on the walls.
قام 15 طالباً برسم شعار جاءك الدور يا دكتور على جدار مدرستهم. الدكتور كانت الكلمة التي يسخر بها المتظاهرون من الأسد لكونه طبيب عيون سابق.
Bring down the regime. The same words in Arabic, isqat an-nizam, that were being used in places like Egypt.
Dara is obviously a key part of this story because that is where the violence started a week ago. And then we saw protests spreading in different parts around the country.
سار المواطنون في درعا إلى بيت المحافظ وطالبوا بالإفراج عن المتظاهرين الشباب. رد الفعل كان وحشياً.
Crackdown on anti-government uprisings in Syria escalated today when soldiers and tanks stormed the southern city of Dara. Witnesses said the soldiers fired indiscriminately on civilians.
بدأت سوريا بالانزلاق نحو الفوضى.
Well, Adrian, this is where the protest started about a week ago, and because of the violence that was seen there, we saw protests in support of the people of Dara around the country.
Well, the Syrian revolt was a unique event. It was popular. It was very, very widespread. It absorbed probably 3/4 of the population.
This is what the government of Bashar al-Assad doesn't want the world to see. Police violence has killed more than 1,000 demonstrators.
You had legitimate Syrian people who wanted to free themselves and reap some of the benefits that they'd seen in other regions as the Arab Spring began to blossom. You had Assad, who was truly ruthless and brutal dictator who was not going to allow that to happen.
في البداية كانت طموحات المتظاهرين محدودة.
They had minor demands. All they wanted was a loosening of the political system, more liberalism, more democracy. And then what happened is that the regime cracked down on these nonviolent protesters.
We turn to the latest powder keg in the Middle East, Syria. A bloody day. At least 75 people were killed during pro-democracy demonstrations against the government of Bashar al-Assad.
كان باراك أوباما يتابع الأحداث وينتظر في واشنطن.
Oh, the American administration absolutely was surprised by what happened in Syria.
كان الضغط الذي يمارس على نظام الأسد موضع ترحيب من قبل بعض المسؤولين في واشنطن.
I don't know whether there was a plan for regime change, but I do know that many people, especially in DC, have wanted to topple the Assad regime.
Well, these were very difficult decisions. We could never guarantee a result if this or that option was selected. There's a lot of uncertainty. This all, of course, came in the wake of the Arab Spring, where governments in Tunisia, Egypt, and Libya had been toppled.
Let us be clear about that. The viewers should understand the American position was not regime change. We did regime change in Iraq. It was a catastrophe, and no one wanted to do that in Syria.
President Obama's national security staffer says Obama's mistakes in Syria left, quote, a more dangerous world.
I think the White House attitude was, if a political player of the skill and longevity of Hosni Mubarak in Egypt was not going to survive internal protests, then what chance did Bashar al-Assad have?
I think President Obama came to the Middle East in general with the backdrop of the experiences that the United States has had in the Middle East, and particularly the Iraq War. He was elected on a platform of getting the U.S. out of wasteful, costly, bloody wars that had cost the United States in terms of men, women, and treasure, and credibility, reputation. And I think that did weigh heavily, not to the point of paralysis by any means, but it weighed very heavily on him in terms of thinking, am I going to be the president who's going to start yet another war?
The tragedy of Syria is especially more poignant when you consider that the beginning of the conflict started with such hope.
Syria, the most repressive state in the Middle East.
We were trying to convince the Syrian government to stop using bullets against peaceful protests.
Protesters demanded the end of the regime, racing to see the reaction of heavily armed government security forces.
And to stop arresting people and putting them in jail where they were beaten and tortured in many cases.
Syria is maybe a case study in a war that's directed really not against another state, not against another army, not against another force, but against civilians. I had no idea that the actions of Bashar al-Assad would ultimately lead to the destruction of the Syrian state.
By April and May of 2011, the Syrian police and the Syrian secret police were becoming so brutal. It was necessary to speak out more publicly.
في ربيع عام 2011 أعطى رئيس الولايات المتحدة خيارين للأسد.
The Syrian government must stop shooting demonstrators and allow peaceful protests. President Assad now has a choice. He can lead that transition or get out of the way.
ولكن الكلمات القوية هذه لم تتطابق مع ما يناسبها من أعمال.
President Obama, who said that Bashar al-Assad must go, was very deliberative about this, and in a couple of key junctures, really pushed the decision further down the road.
The U.S. was not using its intelligence capabilities to get the sense of the population and what the regime was really up to. That suggests that the Obama administration was, if not flying blind, then they basically did not have both eyes open.
In Syria, Assad refuses to let up on the rebellious city of Hama.
أصبحت حماه رمزاً للثورة السورية. قام روبرت فورد سفير الولايات المتحدة بزيارة مثيرة للجدل إلى خندق المتظاهرين.
We were saying to the protesters, it's necessary that you stay peaceful.
كانت الأجواء متوترة. جيش الأسد كان مستعداً لدخول المدينة في أي لحظة، ولكن المتظاهرين كانوا على قناعة بأن الولايات المتحدة سترسل لهم العون.
The opposition leaders told me that I, the American ambassador, did not understand American policy and that President Obama would send the American military to help the protest movement. And I always said to them, you are mistaken. You do not understand the mood, you do not understand the political and public environment in the United States.
في يوم أحد شديد الحرارة من شهر يوليو، بدأت دبابات النظام وجنوده بالتحرك نحو مدينة حماه من كل الاتجاهات. لم تكن الحجارة والعصي كافية لإيقاف جيش الأسد. تصاعدت الثورة السورية في مدينة حماه إلى مستوى غير مسبوق من العنف.
Activists in Syria say 220 people have been massacred by government troops in the city of Hama. For 5 days and nights, the army has attacked civilians there with tanks firing shells and snipers shooting from rooftops.
The civil war there continues to rage, leaving more than 135,000 people dead.
لم يستطع أوباما البقاء صامتاً.
Well, the Obama administration is considering taking action as the civil war in Syria intensifies.
وجه رئيس الولايات المتحدة عبر بيان مكتوب لأول مرة نداء صريحا للأسد لكي يستقيل. سلمت وزيرة خارجيته هيلاري كلينتون الرسالة إلى نظام الأسد.
This morning, President Obama called on Assad to step aside and announced the strongest set of sanctions to date targeting the Syrian government.
Making speeches about how Assad, we'd be much better off without him, and yet not going the full distance to actually have him removed.
President Obama and all of the Western leaders at the time, they were able to respond as quickly as possible to a scenario that they frankly did not see coming.
When I was asked in August of 2011 if I would agree that the president say that Bashar al-Assad step aside, I accepted it. I should have said, no, don't do that. It won't help. It will make our jobs more difficult and it will damage the reputation of the United States in the long term. But I didn't. I accepted it. That was a mistake.
One of Robert Ford's greatest talents and capabilities is in empathy and understanding where he was. I think he was up against an impossibility. He had a president who just didn't listen, who didn't want to hear his reports, who didn't want to get his advice.
كان بيان أوباما مبنياً على حسابات خاطئة.
The thing that drove the president's statement of August 18th, 2011, that Assad should step aside more than anything else, was the strong belief of the president and his inner circle advisors that Bashar al-Assad was finished, that it was only a matter of time before, in essence, he was taken away in chains.
أرسل البيان نفسه رسالة واضحة إلى العالم. الولايات المتحدة لن تفرض انتقال السلطة على سوريا. كان من شأن هذا البيان أن يحدد لهجة الرد الأمريكي على الانتفاضة السورية.
I also had no idea that the words of the President of the United States, words like Bashar al-Assad should step aside, would prove in the end to be meaningless.
There was a lot of confusion and uncertainty. There were all sorts of inconsistencies in U.S. policy under Obama with respect to how much we're actually genuinely interested in regime change in Damascus.
When his memoirs come out, I'm sure that it's still one of those issues that give him the most cause for self-questioning and for anguish about what he did, what he could have done, and whether he should have acted differently.
في الحلقة القادمة سنبحث أكثر عن ظهور تنظيم القاعدة والخطوط الحمراء التي رسمتها الولايات المتحدة.
The U.S. State Department says the al-Nusra Front linked to al-Qaeda is trying to hijack the conflict for its own purposes, but the U.S. has not said that it targeted the al-Nusra Front